Hello everyone, Seeker7 here. So, yesterday I turned 29 years. Yes, 29 years I've been on this earth. And I figured, what better way to celebrate the occasion than to do this video that I know is not a new idea since almost everyone on YouTube who's into film have done this. But I thought, why not do it myself? And that is, I'm going to show you my favorite movies from each year since I've been born. So, yeah, basically how this will work is I will show you the films that I consider my personal favorites between 1993, the year I was born, to 2021. So, what I'll do is first I will give one honorable mention, and then I will show you what I consider my personal favorite. And keep in mind that these are my personal favorites of movies that I have so far seen. There's still plenty of movies from these years that I have yet to check out. So, this will likely change in the near future. This is just how I feel as of now. So that being said, let's go ahead and get this started. So starting off with 1993, my honorable mention for that year is the film that won the award for Best Picture, and that is Steven Spielberg's Schindler's List. Yep, this is easily, hands down, his best film he has ever done. From the filmmaking, the acting, and just the powerful story about how one man saved over 1,000 Jews during one of the darkest points in human history. It's just powerful film that is tough to sit through, but everyone should watch at least once. And even though this is what I consider the best film that he's ever made from an objective standpoint, it's not my favorite film of 93, nor is it my favorite film that he did. And yeah, you should all know what it is. My favorite film in 1993 is Jurassic Park. What can I say? This movie is definitely a perfect definition of a summer blockbuster. From the special effects that for the most part, hold up pretty well to this day. The actors who play such memorable characters, and overall is just a classic thriller that we just don't get too much these days. Even the newest sequels just cannot compare to the original. So moving on to 1994, my honorable mention for that year is Disney's The Lion King. This used to be one of my favorite films growing up as a kid, and honestly, to this day, it is still definitely in my top 5 favorite of the Disney animated classics. The animation looks gorgeous. It's definitely one of the more mature films Disney has ever made. And yeah, I don't know what else to say that hasn't been said. Even though it's not my personal favorite Disney film, that's between Beauty and the Beast or Fantasia. But it's definitely up there in the top 10, if not top 5. If there's one good thing that terrible remake did, is it made me appreciate the original way more. But my number one favorite film in 1994 is The Shawshank Redemption. I first saw this film for the first time in my film class in college, and yeah, I could see why this is IMDb's number 1 highest rated film. It's just an amazing film. Tim Robbins is great as the lead. Morgan Freeman in what is probably his best performance as Red. And it's just an overall outstanding film, and it's also one of the few films that its ending almost made me shed a tear. I'm just going to say that. I don't cry very easily at movies, but this film came close with its ending. Moving on to 1995, my honorable mention for that year is Ghost in the Shell, one of my favorite anime films. Just love the animation, I love the story, and I love how it is sort of this almost Blade Runner-like future. In fact, I think it did take inspiration from Blade Runner, and The Matrix would take inspiration from this movie. I'm just going to say this, though, that this is going to be a controversial opinion, but I like this movie more than The Matrix. Just going to say that. And I definitely need to check out the show Standalone Complex. But my number 1 favorite film in 1995 is another movie starring Morgan Freeman, and that is Seven. David Fincher's masterpiece. Definitely one of my favorite crime dramas, and one of the greatest endings to a movie. Like, seriously, you cannot end this film on a more raw and just honest note. I won't say anything if you haven't seen it, but if you haven't seen this movie, definitely check it out. Going on to 1996, which, if I can be honest, 1996 I felt wasn't really a big year for movies, but then again, there's still a lot of films of that year I still haven't seen. But for my honorable mention is Disney's underrated film, The Hunchback of Notre Dame. I'd argue this is in their top 10, maybe top 5 best in terms of its animation, how big and epic it feels. Even though the gargoyles are definitely the worst part of the movie, but aside from them, it's just an overall great film with great animation and great music. But my number 1 favorite film in 1996 is Fargo by the Coen brothers. I'd argue this is my second favorite film by them, and you'll see my number 1 later on. But yeah, just a great film, and Frances McDormand, easily her best performance ever. and it's just great. And this is another movie I watched in my film class for the first time as well. Alright, so 1997, which was a really good year for movies. This was the year that brought us Titanic, Good Will Hunting, Boogie Nights, LA Confidential, Gattaca. But for me, my two favorite films of that year are, both of them are anime films. My honorable mention goes to Perfect Blue by Satoshi Kon, or Satoshi Kon, or however you say his name. Easily his best movie, at least out of the ones I've seen. I still haven't seen Millennium Actress or Paprika, but definitely one of the most disturbing and horrific animated films, and definitely, as Animat said best, one of the best, if not the best, twist villain ever. Like, take notes, Disney. This is how you do a twist villain. But, yeah. But my number one favorite film in 1997 is Hayao Miyazaki's Princess Mononoke. Not my favorite Studio Ghibli film, but it's definitely in the top 5, maybe 7 favorites. It's just an epic movie with epic characters and just epic-looking animation. Definitely the most brutal film by Studio Ghibli, I must say. But, yeah, if you haven't seen this movie, definitely check it out. Alright, for 1998, my honorable mention is Saving Private Ryan, one of the greatest war films of all time, and again, by Steven Spielberg. He really loves to do war movies, as shown between, like his miniseries, Band of Brothers, The Pacific, and a new one that's coming out later this year I'm definitely looking forward to. But Saving Private Ryan, the opening 10-20 minutes alone is so intense and rough to watch, but it's definitely one of the best openings to any film ever, and easily one of Tom Hanks' best roles ever, in my opinion. But my number one favorite film in 1998 is a film from my childhood that I've grown to love more and more the more I revisit it. And it's my favorite DreamWorks film of all time, and that is The Prince of Egypt. I don't think I need to say too much. The fact this movie doesn't appear on more lists in like the top 100 greatest animated films ever is such a crime. Because the animation itself is beautiful, the songs are beautiful, the story, it definitely takes a very interesting take of the story of Moses, I have to say. But again, if you haven't seen this movie, definitely check it out. It's definitely easily DreamWorks' best, and I feel they have not made a film since that comes close. I know some people will say How to Train Your Dragon, Shrek, or Kung Fu Panda. Love those movies, but they don't come close to topping Prince of Egypt. Alright, for 1999, I know this was the year that brought us The Matrix, and American Beauty, and Fight Club. Wait, yeah, Fight Club. But my two favorite films of that year, first my honorable mention, is the underrated Japanese horror film, Audition. I saw this film recently, about a year and a half ago, I think. Like, not this past Halloween, but the last Halloween. And it is so good. It's such a unique horror film that it does start off a little slow, but trust me, it does pick up eventually. And again, if you haven't seen it, check it out. But my number one favorite film in 1999 is a film that I liked fine enough as a kid, but I've grown to love more and more as an adult, and that is The Iron Giant. What can I say? It's Brad Bird's best film ever. The animation is great, and it's a shame this film bombed in the box office, but thankfully it has gained the more of attention in recent years, even if it's for, wrong reasons, like in Ready Player One or Space Jam: A New Legacy, but we're not going to go there. But again, Iron Giant, instant classic, one of the greatest animated films ever. Check it out. Alright, so the year 2000, so many great movies of this year that I felt bad of not including. Movies like American Psycho, Battle Royale, Requiem for a Dream, Almost Famous, The Emperor's New Groove. But for my two favorite films of that year, my honorable mention goes to Amores Perros by Alejandro Iñárritu. This is the director who would later on go do The Revenant and Birdman. This was his directorial debut, and what an amazing film to start on. Very harsh movie that centers around this car accident, but it's 3 different stories that all center around this car accident, as well as dogfighting. But it's a very fascinating, character study and just the life of these people in this city in Mexico. So, again, definitely check it out if you haven't. But my number one favorite film of 2000 as of now is Memento. This is my favorite film by Christopher Nolan. I know for most people it's either Inception, The Dark Knight, or Interstellar, but this one, I've seen it twice, and the second time I've loved it more than the first. I've really gotten more into it. It's a movie where the story is told literally backwards in terms of its narrative, and it's so fascinating how it does it. So, again, check it out if you haven't seen it. Alright, so the year 2001, my honorable mention goes to The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. I'm going to be honest, I haven't seen the Lord of the Rings movies in a long time, but based on memory, I do remember really loving these movies and how epic they are, and I would definitely love to revisit them. But Fellowship of the Ring, I've seen the most out of the 3 films, I think. But it's just an all-around epic. Like the acting's great, the just the filmmaking itself is impressive, and again, it's just I don't know what else to say that's never been said. They're considered one of the greatest films ever. But my number one favorite film of 2001 is also what I consider my favorite movie of all time, or at least in my top 5 favorite films of all time, and that is Spirited Away. The movie that is regarded as one of the greatest, if not the greatest animated films of all time. I don't think I need to say anything, because you all should know Spirited Away, but if you haven't seen it, then I honestly envy you, because you get to watch it for the first time, and just the first time seeing this, I was in such awe from how beautiful and how fantastical this film was. So yeah. So for 2002, my honorable mention is The Two Towers. Definitely the weakest of the 3 films, but it's still an awesome film all around. Gollum is one of the greatest CGI characters ever, and just awesome battle scenes in general. It's great. But my number one favorite film of 2002 is The Pianist. One of my favorite war films of all time, and easily my favorite film by Roman Polanski, which I know the controversy around him as a human being, but as a director, you can't deny he's given us some amazing films between this, Rosemary's Baby, Chinatown, Repulsion, the very underrated The Ghostwriter. But this is easily his best. If you haven't seen it, watch it. You won't regret it. Alright, for 2003, my honorable mention is The Return of the King, the grand conclusion to the trilogy, and also, if I remember correctly, the first fantasy film to win the award for Best Picture, and it definitely deserved it. Such an epic conclusion. Yes, the ending does drag out quite a bit, but considering how much happened in all 3 of these movies, you can understand why it's like that. So yeah. But for me, my number one favorite film of 2003 is Oldboy. Yes, this is also in my top 5 favorite films of all time. Definitely my favorite South Korean movie. And definitely one of the greatest, if not most, heartbreaking and disturbing endings to a film you can ever have. So, again, if you haven't seen this, definitely watch it. Ignore the American remake by Spike Lee. It's a piece of trash. Alright, so for 2004, there's quite a few films of this year I still haven't seen. Like, I haven't seen Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. And I haven't seen The Life Aquatic of Steve Zissou. So, yeah. But my 2 favorite films of this year as of now, my honorable mention goes to Million Dollar Baby by Clint Eastwood. I'll be honest, I haven't seen a lot of films by Clint Eastwood. I still haven't seen Unforgiven or Mystic River. But as of now, out of the ones I have seen, this I'd say is my favorite. It's definitely one of my favorite sports movies, I could tell you that. Clint Eastwood, and once again, Morgan Freeman has made another appearance in this video. Both are great, and so is Hilary Swank. Overall, just a powerful film and a pretty heartbreaking ending, I must say. If you have seen this film, you know what I'm talking about. But my number one favorite film of 2004 is Pixar's The Incredibles. Definitely in my top 10, maybe favorite, top 10, maybe top 5 favorite Pixar movies. And it's definitely the most adult Pixar film. Although everyone says Soul is, and I still haven't seen Soul, so I need to see that for myself. But what can I say? It's a very unique take on the superhero genre, where it's a superhero family. And it's just a ton of fun. It's funny, it's heartwarming, it's got great action to it. And the sequel is pretty good, even though not as good as the first one. Okay, 2005, which, again, in my opinion, this wasn't a very big year for movies, at least compared to some of these other years. Or at least I haven't seen enough films in 2005, so maybe that's it. But as of now, my 2 favorite films of that year, my honorable mention goes to the most underrated horror movie of the 2000s, and that is The Descent. Just a great premise with great performances, where these women are hiking in the Appalachian Mountains. They're going through the caves within the mountains, and they get trapped, and it creates this really claustrophobic feel to it. And then later on, they realize that there's far worse things lurking in the caves. So, again, if you haven't seen it and you want to watch a really good, very solid horror flick, I definitely recommend checking this out. Ignore the sequel; it's garbage. But and also make sure you watch the British version, the movie with the British ending, not the one with the garbage American ending, which this, I believe, has the original unrated cut. So yeah, this has the British ending to it, so yeah. But my number one favorite film of 2005 is what I consider the most underrated war movie, as well as the most underrated Christmas movie, and that is Joyeux Noël, or Merry Christmas as it translates. Based on a true story about the Christmas truce of 1914. And again, if you haven't seen this, definitely check it out. And I hope someday this gets a Blu-ray release, because, yeah, I only have that DVD, so yeah. Alright, 2006. Honorable mention, Children of Men by Alfonso Cuarón. Easily his best film ever. And definitely the best movie Clive Owen's ever been. Michael Caine is great. Never thought I'd ever see him play a hippie. It's pretty funny. But it's such a great post-apocalyptic film where children have not been born for 18 years, and then so much just stuff happens. So I I don't know how to describe this movie to people who haven't seen it. All I can say is just check it out if you haven't, because it's really, really good. But my number one favorite film in 2006 is also in my top 5 favorite films of all time, and that is Pan's Labyrinth by Guillermo del Toro. It's definitely, in my opinion, one of the greatest fantasy films ever, along with the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Definitely the best child performance. The girl who plays Ophelia is so good. The effects are great, well, for the most part. There's some CGI that hasn't aged too well. Pale Man, one of the freakiest looking characters I've seen in any film. And also, just another one of those movies that has a villain that you just love to hate. When he goes down, it is so satisfying. So, haven't watched this, please check it out, because it is so, so good. Alright, so for 2007, which might be my favorite year for movies, so many great films came out this year. Between There Will Be Blood, Ratatouille, Persepolis, 5 centimeters per second, Atonement, The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, Secret Sunshine. Again, too many great films to list, but if I had to pick my personal favorite films, my honorable mention goes to Hot Fuzz, one of my favorite comedies of all time. Definitely my favorite film by Edgar Wright. Simon Pegg and Nick Frost are both really great, and it's just such a great take on the buddy cop genre, and it's actually better than most buddy cop movies. So, yeah, if you want a good laugh, definitely check this out. But my number one favorite film in 2007 is my favorite Coen Brothers film ever, and that is No Country for Old Men. This film definitely deserved to win for Best Picture, although There Will Be Blood would have been a good option too. But everyone is great. Josh Brolin, Tommy Lee Jones, Javier Bardem, Woody Harrelson. And it's one of those movies that it did kind of turn people off at first because of its ending, but I loved the ending. I thought it was a very more grounded to reality ending to it. And also, Anton Chigurh is one of the greatest movie villains ever. But, yeah, just love it so much. Okay, 2008. Now, again, another great year for movies. This is the year that brought us The Dark Knight, In Bruges, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, Synecdoche, New York, Let the Right One In, The Wrestler, and of course, the film that started the MCU, Iron Man. But for me, my 2 favorite films of 2008 are both animated films. And you probably noticed there's a lot of animated films in this video. But my honorable mention goes to Waltz with Bashir by Eric Fullman, one of the most underrated war films ever. It's kind of a documentary in a way, but yeah, it's... I believe this was also the first animated film to be nominated for Best Foreign Language Film. But if you're into war movies and haven't seen this, definitely check it out. It's got really cool looking animation to it. But my number one favorite film of 2008 is my favorite Pixar film of all time, and that is WALL-E. I don't think I need to say anything. It's just, it's my comfort film, I guess you could say. Like, if ever I need to, if I'm in a depressed or stressed out mood, I need to watch something that's lighthearted or wholesome, I definitely put this on. It still holds up to this day, and it gets better for me every time I view it. Okay, 2009. This is another one of my favorite years for movies. It definitely was a really good year for animated films. This is the year that gave us Up, The Prince and the Frog, Secret of Kells, Coraline. But my 2 favorite films of 2009 are both animated features. My honorable mention goes to Fantastic Mr. Fox, easily my favorite Wes Anderson film, although to be fair, I haven't seen all of his movies yet. But great stop motion animation, great voice casting, and it's just, for me, it's just unbelievably funny. This is definitely one of my favorite comedies ever. But my number one favorite film of 2009 is one of my favorite films ever, and one of my favorite animated films ever, as well as one of my favorite stop-motion animated films ever, Mary and Max. I think I've talked about this film enough on this channel before, but all I can say is if you haven't seen it, definitely watch it, because it starts off as pretty funny, and then it gets really dramatic and heavy in the second half, but it's just such a good movie, and it's a shame this didn't get nominated for Best Animated Picture, even though, to be fair, 2009 was such a good year for animation. Anyway. Alright, 2010. So many good films that to start off the 2010s decade. Between Inception, Black Swan, Shutter Island, Social Network, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Toy Story 3, How to Train Your Dragon. But my 2 favorite films of 2010, my honorable mention goes to Incendies. Directed by Denis Villeneuve, the same director who would later give us Prisoners, Enemy, Sicario, Arrival, Blade Runner 2049, and Dune. And this is just such an incredible film that's a very riveting mystery, great casting, and again, one of those movies that has such a heart-wrenching ending to it. But again, it's so good. If you haven't checked it out, I definitely recommend checking it out. But my number one favorite film in 2010 is The Illusionist. This was nominated for Best Animated Picture, and honestly, as much as I love Toy Story 3, this one just, I don't know, I don't know, it just connected with me a lot more, and I love it. And I love this director's previous film, The Triplets of Belleville, but this one I think I might like more. It's a very short film about this magician and this relationship he bonds with this little girl that he comes across by. It's kind of this father-daughter relationship, and the movie tells this story almost entirely without dialogue. So yeah, if you want to watch a more obscure animation that will leave you, just blown away with how beautiful its story is, definitely check this out. All right, 2011. My honorable mention goes to Drive by what's this director's name? Nicholas Winding Refn, I think is how you say his name. But yeah, Drive. A lot of people were a little unsure of this film when it first came out, but it has gained more of a following over years. And yeah, I think this is definitely one of the best films of the last decade in terms of its filmmaking, its acting, and people were expecting this to be like a Fast and the Furious, Trainspotting kind of movie, but it's not that. It's actually way better. And easily, in my opinion, Ryan Gosling's best performance he's ever given. But my number one favorite film of 2011 is The Kid with a Bike, directed by the Dardenne brothers, I think is their name, is what they're referred to as. This is the only film by them I've seen so far. I haven't seen Rosetta yet, but that's definitely on my to-watch list. This is a French film, I believe, and it's the story about this boy who's very troubled, who father doesn't really want him, so he's taken in by this caretaker, and it's a nice, short little film that I definitely would recommend checking out. 2012. My two favorite films of this year are both animated, again, and I know, this is the year that brought us Django Unchained, and The Avengers, and Argo. But for me, my two favorite films of 2012 as of now, my honorable mention goes to Wolf Children by Mamoru Hosoda. This is easily his best film. I'm a huge fan of this director's work. I've loved every single movie of his, between The Boy and the Beast, Summer Wars, The Girl Who Left Her Time, Mirai, and Belle I got to see in theaters, which was so good. But this is easily his best. It's definitely his most heart-wrenching film he's ever done, which is saying quite a bit. And this is the kind of movie I would definitely show on Mother's Day, since it's definitely a mom's movie. And so yeah, definitely check it out if you haven't seen it. But my number one favorite film of 2012 is It's Such a Beautiful Day. Such a unique independent animated film by Don Hertzfeldt. I haven't seen any of his shorts, which I believe this Blu-ray does come with his other shorts, if you can see right there on the back. But yeah, it's a short movie, like an hour and 5 minutes, but despite having a simplistic animation style, it has a pretty heavy story with some heavy themes in it. So definitely check it out if you haven't. All right, 2013, the year that films like Her and 12 Years a Slave came out, two movies I still haven't seen yet. But my honorable mention goes to another Studio Ghibli film, The Wind Rises. This was a movie that was meant to be Hayao Miyazaki's last film before he went for retired, only to then come out of retirement and is currently working on a new movie. But such a great film that is loosely based on a true story, and it just captures everything that's great about Miyazaki's films and his legacy, so yeah. But my number one favorite film of 2013 is one I saw recently not too long ago, and that is Prisoners, another Denis Villeneuve movie. Such a heavy film about this family whose daughter gets kidnapped, and Hugh Jackman plays his father who is desperate to do whatever it takes to find her. And both he and Jake Gyllenhaal are great in this movie, and again, if you're into crime dramas, I definitely recommend checking this out. So yeah. Alright, 2014, my honorable mention goes to Wes Anderson's The Grand Budapest Hotel. Another one of my favorite comedies ever. Even though I've only seen this movie once, but based on that one experience, I had a blast with this film. I love the look of it, I love the performances, I love the humor. And between this, Fantastic Mr. Fox, and Isle of Dogs, I could say just based on those three films already, Wes Anderson is definitely becoming one of my favorite directors when it comes to comedy movies. And I definitely can't wait to check out his other ones. But my number one favorite film of 2014 is my second favorite Studio Ghibli film after Spirited Away, and that is When Marnie Was There. I think this is criminally underrated. Like, not enough people talk about this particular film. I don't know, I just love the story, I love the animation, and this is the first movie that ever made me break down and cry when I first watched it, which anyone who's ever seen this movie knows what I'm talking about. Particularly with its ending, and that song that plays in the end credits. No other song has ever made me break in tears compared to that song. Okay, so for 2015, my honorable mention goes to The Revenant. Another film by Alejandro Iñárritu, and this might be my favorite film of his so far, even though I haven't seen all of his movies yet, but this might end up being my favorite of his. Leonardo DiCaprio, he definitely deserved that Oscar for Best Actor for this, and this might even be my favorite Western, because it is technically a Western, even though it takes place during the winter, but it's just an epic film. It is long, but it's worth it. But my number one favorite film of 2015 is Anomalisa. This is the stop-motion animated film that was nominated for Best Animated Picture. It's also the first R-rated animated film to be nominated for Best Animated Picture, even though I personally think it should have won, but yeah, the winner was Inside Out that year. Loved Inside Out, but I like this one a lot more. Just such a deep, depressing story about this man who just feels unsatisfied with his life. But there's a lot of deep meanings behind it, and yeah, I hope Charlie Kaufman does another animated film like this in the future. Alright, so for 2016, again, my two favorite films of that year are both animated. My honorable mention goes to Tower. This might be one of my favorite documentaries ever. It's a documentary that uses animation to tell this true story about one of the earliest school shootings in America. And it does it in such a unique and powerful way that I've never seen a documentary done before. And I've seen this movie at least 3 times now, I think, and it just gets better for me every time I see it, and I kind of would like to watch it again sometime soon. But my number one favorite film of 2016, and I know some people nowadays will see this film as overrated. I know some people aren't a fan of this film, but, I mean, a lot of people love it, and I absolutely love it, and that is Your Name. One of my favorite animated films to come out in the last decade, and beautiful animation. And I just love Makoto Shinkai's movies, even though they're not always perfect, but I'm just always blown away by how beautiful he makes his animation. And yeah, again, if you haven't seen this movie, definitely check it out. Okay, so for 2017, again, this was such an amazing year for movies that it was kind of hard to pick my 2 favorites. But in the end, my honorable mention goes to Paddington 2. Easily one of the greatest family films to come out in the past decade. The first film was great, but this one I feel was even better. It's funnier, it's more charming, and it's just a nice little wholesome film that even if you don't have kids, I'd still recommend checking these movies out, especially if you're into British comedies like me. But my favorite film of 2017 is Denis Villeneuve's masterpiece, at least in my opinion, Blade Runner 2049. This is how you do a sequel to a classic film, and in many ways, I personally think this is one of the rare cases where the sequel is better than the original. Like, I love the original, but this one, just, the visuals look amazing, which of course it is, because, you know, we're talking many years after the original, but performances are great, and it just explores more of the world of Blade Runner, and I just love it. It is long, it's a little slow, but it's definitely one of the best science fiction films to come out in recent years. Alright, so for 2018, my honorable mention is another documentary film that I absolutely love, and that is They Shall Not Grow Old. Such a fascinating piece of filmmaking, how they took this footage from World War I and colorized it, added in the sound, and it's amazing. Peter Jackson really outdid himself with this film. And if you do watch this movie, after you're done watching it, watch the making of feature that's on this Blu-ray, because as he explains how they did it, it's just as fascinating as the movie itself. But my number one favorite film of 2018 is Roma, Alfonso Cuarón's second best film, in my opinion, after Children of Men. I really felt this should have won for Best Picture and not Green Book. I mean, I still haven't seen Green Book, so I can't say, but based on what everyone's saying, this should have won. Great filmmaking, great performances about this maid who takes care of this family in Mexico, and it's just a great, just slice of life story that I know won't appeal to everyone because they'll find it to be slow and boring, but I personally loved it. I didn't find it that slow or anything, but I definitely need to rewatch it again just to make sure. But from what I remember, I really, really liked it. Okay, 2019, which, what an amazing year for movies. This was such a great end to the decade. It might be the best year of the 2010s when it came to movies. Movies like Marriage Story, The Irishman, Uncut Gems, Klaus, just a lot of great films. But for me, my 2 favorite films of that year, my honorable mention goes to Parasite, which I just watched recently for the first time, and it deserved win the award for Best Picture. It's about time a foreign language film won the award for Best Picture, and I definitely need to check out more of this director's movies, because based on this, Snowpiercer, and The Host, I'm definitely quickly loving this director. But such a great story that combines comedy and drama about this family that's taking advantage of this richer family, because they're poor and trying to live a better life, but things do go horribly wrong in the end, and I just recommend checking it out if you haven't seen it. But my number one favorite film of 2019 is The Lighthouse by Robert Eggers, starring Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson. But yeah, between this and The Witch, I'm definitely looking more forward to what more films this director brings. Like, yes, I'm definitely looking forward to The Northman, that Vikings movie that's coming out in April. But this is just such an incredible film that, again, I can understand won't appeal to everyone because it is a little slow-ish, but it does have some humor at times, particularly with Willem Dafoe's over-the-top acting. You know you'll be fond of it, Lobster. But yeah, love it. It's great. I wish this was nominated for Best Picture, but it wasn't. Okay, on to 2020, which a lot of people say was not a good year for movies for obvious reasons, but I mean, from what I can tell, there were still plenty of decent films that need to be checked out. My honorable mention for 2020 goes to The Father, another movie I saw recently for the first time, and again, I absolutely fell in love with this film, and again, this movie should have won for Best Picture and not Nomadland, but Anthony Hopkins gives his best performance since Silence of the Lambs. It's the story about this old man who basically is suffering from dementia, and the movie is told through his perspective, so you get an idea what people with dementia go through, and it's tragic, and much like The Shawshank Redemption, this is another one of those movies where the ending almost really got to me. So, yeah, definitely check it out if you haven't seen it. But my honorable mention, my number one favorite film of 2020 as of now, and I have to hold this up, is Wolfwalkers. This is the Irish Folklore Trilogy box set, and this is the only way you can get Wolfwalkers as a physical copy, but Wolfwalkers is the third film in this trilogy, and it's easily the best. I love Secret of Kells, I love Song of the Sea, but Wolfwalkers has the best animation, the best story, the best characters. It's just great all around. It should have won Best Animated Picture, but I still haven't seen Soul, so what can I say? So yeah. And finally, we come to 2021, just last year. And again, there's still a lot of films I haven't seen yet, but out of the ones I have seen, movies like Dune, which was my favorite film of the year until I discovered two more, and I did enjoy The Green Knight and The Suicide Squad, and I even enjoyed Raya and the Last Dragon, but my two favorite films of 2021, honorable mention goes to Peg, starring Nicolas Cage. Easily, probably Nicolas Cage's best performance in a long time, and let me just put it this way, if you're going into this movie expecting John Wick, don't. It's not that kind of story. Yes, he's going after the men that killed his pig, but what happens later, it's more of a deconstruction of his character and the revelation of his past. And I just absolutely loved it. But my favorite film of 2021 is Mass. Ever since I've seen 12 Year Men, I've always been fascinated with movies where the entirety of the film takes place in one location. If done right, they can be really fascinating. And this film, I think, did it phenomenally. It's a story about these two pairs of parents who are discussing each other about an incident that occurred 6 years prior. And it's just a really tense film, but it also does end up having a very heartwarming ending to it. So if you haven't seen it, try to be patient with it, because it is a very rewarding experience. And so there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this little video. I just felt like putting up. It's not much, but I wanted to put something out for my birthday, even if it is a day late. Main reason why I was a day late is because I've been busy yesterday with my job and celebrating the birthday of my family, and I don't know if you can tell, but I got a new webcam, so I was just wanting to try it out, see how it works. Again, I'm sorry, progress on Heroes with Villains has been a little slow. Again, life's busy. Hopefully I'll try to get back to working on it soon. But anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and please tell me in the comment section below, what are your favorite films from each year, since you were born? Just comment below in the section below, and I will see y'all in the next video. Later.